Call this meeting to order. Mary, read the roll, please.
Present.
Here.
Harris.
Yes.
Garcia.
Here, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome all of those who are in attendance and come out to the city meeting this evening as well. I would like to extend a welcome to all of those who are joining us online. Without any further, we're going to move on to item number 2. I'm going to open up the public hearing of rezoning 1612 Colorado Avenue at 501. So if anybody is here, most of you are acquainted with what a rezoning is, to speak in favor or against the rezoning process, please do so now.
Yes.
Yeah, right here.
We're the owners of 1612 Colorado. We are looking into building a shop in that empty lot. The residential is not big enough for the shop, so we want to go a little bigger. So that's why we are requesting to have the lot rezoned to commercial property.
And what is the purpose of the shop?
We have a trucking business, so we service our trucks there. So we just need one big enough. It's too cold in the winter, so we just want to have a shop where we can just service our own trucks and stuff. So we have 3 trucks and several trailers, and it's just my husband and my son that run the business. So.
Great, thank you.
It's my understanding, Brian, most of the area around there somewhat is commercial as well? Yeah.
So the property straight to the south, right. So the property straight to the south, those are all C1. And then everything in white, as you can see, is all R1, so which is single family residential district. So in a C1 district, they can build basically as big as that lot will allow, except for to the north. They'll have to make sure they're X amount of feet away from that property line extra to the north. Which, according to them, when we talked about that, wasn't going to be that big of a deal. The issue is that in a residential district, you can't go any bigger than a 1,200 square foot structure, which is 30 by 40, if you want to do basic math or easy math. So they advised that was going to be way too small. So the height wasn't, I don't think it was a big deal, 20 feet, but the main footprint of the structure was going to be too small. So that's the reason why they're wanting to rezone. But yeah.
And letters were sent out?
So per our rezoning code, rezoning plan, we have to send out letters to all property owners within 300 feet of that property. I did receive 2 or 3 phone calls from neighboring properties, just basically just wanting an idea of what was going to go on and so forth and so on. If the commission does approve this tonight, just be aware that you have 14 days of limbo of anybody to come in and file an appeal with the city clerk. If that does happen, then it has to come back to you guys, and it has to be a full body approval. So anyways, just letting you guys know that if you guys do approve it, it's a 14-day limbo period. So any other questions for me?
Oh, thank you.
Cool. Yep.
Thanks, Mark. I don't seem to be anybody here to oppose. So I am going to close the meeting at 5:04. Thank you. Move on to item 3, public comment. Jason, is anybody saying something? Okay. Move on to item 4, consent agenda. Item A, July 6, 20 commission meeting minutes. Item B, appropriation ordinances 2020-14, 2020-14A, and 2020-P14. I will entertain a motion to accept consent agenda as presented.
I'll move.
I have a motion by Commissioner Thompson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Commissioner Brombaugh. Any questions or concerns? There? Nothing? Mayor Rico?
Thompson.
Yes.
Brumbaugh.
Yes.
Howard. Harris. Garcia.
Yes. Okay, we move on to item number 5, ordinance and resolution. Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Ordinance 1731, which is included in your agenda packet, is the enacting ordinance that would follow a public hearing. This ordinance would rezone the referenced property legally described as all lots 3 and 4, Block 8 of Sharps Addition to the City of Goodland, from an R1 zone to a C1 zone. In addition, it would authorize the changing of the city's official zoning map to reflect these zoning changes. Commissioners have the option of approving the ordinance or obviously not approving or tabling action, but if approved, the zoning change would be enacted.
That's basically a formality that we just wrote through. Like Brian says, we'd have to wait and see whether there be any opposition that would come back to us, right?
Yes, if approved, it will be, the change will become law pending any sort of appeal.
Any questions for Andrew?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 1731.
Have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Thompson, second by Commissioner Ferris. Any questions or concerns? Mary, read the roll.
Harris. Yes. Thompson.
Yes.
Brumbaugh.
Yes.
Garcia.
Yes. Okay, we move on to item 6, discussion item A, fiscal year 2021 budget. Andy?
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. This is an additional budget workshop opportunity for commissioners. Based on our last meeting, the direction from commission was to take the 20% health insurance budgeted increase down to 15%. We did not provide budget supplemental pages for you. Typically after a budget workshop, we'll print the pages that change, but with so much kind of still up in the air about the health insurance discussion, if commissioners change health insurance as discussed, basically every page and adjust wages and things like that, basically every page in the book will have to be reprinted and changed. So before we do that, we want to get a little bit more direction from the governing body. Again, the direction we received previously was to take that 20 down to 15 and to put that towards some kind of employee wage based on what we were able to do with that, the current structure of the 4% contribution. That additional savings from the 20 to 15 does allow us to budget a $1 raise basically for each employee. So we had budgeted 48 cents. It does get us up to offering a $1 an hour wage rate increase to staff. I will also note before turning over to Commissioner discussion, we did provide a number of items. These were emailed out to you as well, but they were some requested documentation, including kind of a breakdown of the city's phone bill, city wage scale, City of Colby health insurance information, City of Colby wages, a breakdown of vehicles bought and sold from 2016 to 2020 in the city, and then kind of as rough of an analysis as could be made in 2 weeks' time of the different proposals with the 4% contribution, a 20% or 25% contribution, and then Commissioner Brumbaugh's plan of kind of working towards a single-only plan, and then the last page was an item that Mayor Garcia, maybe you would speak to, kind of a health insurance proposal with 90-10, 80-20 breakdowns as well. So those documents are all before you for discussion. As a reminder, right now, we would like to have the public hearing for the budget at our August 3rd meeting. That's typically when the city has approved its budget, is at a public hearing the first week in August. In order for us to meet that timeline, we would have to make budget decisions tonight and have a budget that could go to the newspaper tomorrow to be published in the next episode or next edition of the Goodland Star News. If not, we will have to schedule a special meeting and figure out a special hearing date for the budget.
So here's what I would say to that, Andrew. First of all, let me say I really appreciated the dialogue with the employees, but it would appear to me that it would be somewhat unfair to the employees. You know, we would make a decision tonight because there's several options that they, you know, would need to look at. But yeah, I mean, we could expedite a meeting. We could give 2 or 3 days and meet, you know, before our next meeting, give them an opportunity to evaluate, you know, the options that are being presented and see, you know, what they think, you know, from that perspective. Would you agree with something like that? I think that might be.
I think at this point, the timeline is the commission.
Yeah.
It's whatever you all want for meetings, and I'm just letting you know kind of what we need to do for a public hearing date. So we'll be available for however the commission would like to proceed.
What do you think? JD?
I mean, just getting this last page, I mean, I'd like to have some time to, you know, think about it and look at it further, and, because it's kind of some new information too, so, it's just my thought offhand right now.
But would the 2 options that I presented and then the option that you have presented, and of course this one, you know, what we'll do is we'll plug in an agent here to kind of so that the guys can listen to it and see, you know, so that they can understand the options that have been listed, you know, here. But it would be, I think, fair, you know, to the employees to be able to look at the different options, you know, that has been presented, and meet at a later date. What do you think, Al?
I guess I kind of feel we're still really focused on the actual health insurance plan, which is something that we're not deciding on right now. You know, as far as budgeting for the plan, if we budget for the 15%, that amount should cover anything from keeping where we are now, most likely, to anything else that you guys may bring to the table to discuss at that time. So if we were to approve the budget with the 15% increase, that should pretty much cover all this further discussion that could happen at a later date.
Gary, any thoughts?
Well, I don't see how we can really budget accurately for it because we don't know what kind of quotes that we're gonna get. But as long as we budget enough to cover any quote, I guess we're doing good.
I mean, after looking through the budget as a whole, I think is really well done. You know, I've kind of looked through everything and I didn't really see anything in there that really jumped out as unnecessary or improper funding, or, I mean, I think it's really well done. I mean, I like the idea of everybody getting $1 raise, and also I like the idea of taking that $1 raise and adding it to starting wages moving forward. So if we have to hire a new position, they also get that starting raise of being $1 more going into the future. That will help raise the floor of our pay wages for our employees, and being able to do that and still have the 15% increased amount of money towards the insurance plan that we can discuss later on this fall. I think that covers everything pretty well personally.
So what kind of a number are we talking about? Are you for the 15%?
Well, that'd be, so it'd be the 15% increase of what was budgeted for this last year of insurance.
15% of the 748,000, is that what you're looking for?
Or whatever. I don't know.
What number?
There's a lot of numbers, but yeah, I mean, it's roughly $1 million basically once you get that 15%.
I think Vice Mayor Thompson is saying that with the health insurance plan budgeted as is and with the planned increase, that the employee contribution discussion is perhaps one that doesn't need to take place right now and to be discussed at renewal time. Is that an accurate representation?
Yes, yes. I'm just saying, as long as we have our dollar amount budgeted to cover anything that we may decide later on at insurance time, that is kind of a moot point, I think,
So
to
what's
get
the
into the
dollar-
details about
Yeah.
the different plans.
What's the dollar budget that you're looking at? Andy?
Well, the health insurance is spread out between the utility funds and then the general funds on, I believe, page 97. No, I'm sorry, 98. So the employee benefits fund is set at $851,520, but that's encompassing all employee benefits, not just health insurance.
So health insurance would be less. I have a question. I've been looking through some of the documents here on that employee benefit 2020 that we just received versus the last one we received. We show 25 families actually on the family plan, but on this new one, there's 29.
That is to accommodate vacant positions. When we have vacancies, we don't know what sort of health insurance plan they would take. So when we have vacancies, we presume a family plan, with it being the most expensive option, so that we don't hire employees and then not have the funding to provide them with that benefit. So yes, with some of the unfilled positions, that's what we put as a placeholder.
So just curious if a number, that was my question at a prior meeting, we just need to put a number in the line, and we don't necessarily need to decide on what plan or option or changes or whatever. Right now, the biggest thing for budget purposes is getting a number down there. But if there's a significant difference come, just looking at some of these, the kind of new information and option and quotes on that last page, there could be a pretty significant number in the total amount that the city would be spending. And so it seems like other times when we haven't spent something in a line item, it kind of goes away. And can we redirect if that were to happen, if it was a large amount, as far as if we basically we run the risk of overinflating the budget, or we could allocate a portion of that if it doesn't end up being that much. There's a good chunk that we could have put towards something else possibly. Can we reallocate at that time then if that happens?
I believe we would be able to make budget adjustments. That might be kind of an administrative question. Mary, do you have any?
Well, I would say you'd have to allocate it within the fund that is budgeted.
Yes.
You cannot cross fund. So if you're saying in the employee benefits, if you have a large difference that maybe isn't accounted for, you can't take that and spend that out of the general fund, or you can't take that and spend it out of the utility fund, because you can't. You still are subject to the budget authority.
So I guess depending on if there's some payroll deductions or not, or I guess there could be a big difference in how much we put in that line. And then with these other quotes or bids or whatever we're going to call them on these options that I'm looking at now, that came across, there's a large amount there that could be going somewhere else, and I just don't want to lock it up for that reason. That's why it's so important, I think, to have good numbers to go off of now. That's why I was pleading for it last year, so we could get as close to the actual amount as we needed, so it would free up those funds for other line items that are lacking or you want to bolster up or whatever it is. So I guess that's my only hesitation on throwing that big of a number out there if we come in significantly less or even $50,000 or $100,000 less at this point, so could really help out another part of the budget.
Well,
So
one
guess-
of the questions that I have, Andrew, is that with several positions, going away, like the late Mrs. McClure and Rich and Sanderson, we have a total of 50 employees right now. We have to hire a police officer now, and then add one to Dustin, and then first Danny, and then one to Danny. Why are we adding 4 more positions when they can be accommodated within the structure of the ones who are being terminated or, exited?
Yeah, we haven't added any new positions.
This was just a presentation.
Yeah, those are vacancies of existing positions.
JJ, any questions?
I'm lost right at the moment. I don't know where
We're talking insurance.
Right, I got that part of it.
So there's nothing we can do as far as, vote or bring something to change a budget line item to go totally to a different, if we're under or over on a certain area, we want to redirect, even if we amend it or something later on. I mean, you're just stuck with it right in that department it's in.
So the budget amendment process, and again, Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, you can only make a budget amendment if there is the unexpected existence of new revenues. So if you get halfway through a year and you've got a big new revenue source that then requires you to expend, you can adjust your budget, but you can't get halfway into the budget year and start up and down different funds now.
In your, I think, how do I say this? You gotta remember your general fund encompasses a lot of funds. It has your general government, your police, your parks, your street and alley. So it has all of those. So just because street and alley might not spend all their money and parks may need a little money, you're all still within the general fund, so you can make swaps there, but you can't swap from general fund to employee benefit fund or vice versa.
Right.
And you gotta be careful in what you spend out of employee benefits, because if you spend something that's not authorized out of your employee benefits, like say if that's for employee benefits, and you go do a remodel and put an expenditure of a remodel towards your employee benefits, that's, you can't do that. That's an illegal use of those funds.
Yes.
2 years ago, we had,
Take the mic.
2 years ago, we had 15%, and insurance was a lot less than we had.
I think it said 11%,
11.5.
11.5% went back into, what is it called?
The employee benefits fund.
Right, so JD, if that's what your problem is, if things are going to be lower than what the inflation is, couldn't you take that extra money and put it into the, because you're saying on a 5-year plan?
Yes.
Right,
For
so
the
then,
self-insurance.
right, so then would that extra money go into that, towards that program, or am I thinking wrong on that?
Yeah, so anything, if we budget for a 15% increase and it doesn't go to 15%, of that additional stays in the fund to help pay claims of city employees.
Right, so then that bolster your 5-year plan, JD, that you're talking about, which would probably put you ahead, and actually you'd be faster on your 5% or your 5-year plan and get it done with quicker, if that happened. So I guess that's a positive. I'm just, sorry, just thinking out loud.
How much is in that?
In the employee benefits fund. What, I believe we said we had 300,000?
It's the same as the self-insured that we've been building up.
Yes.
This is
Yes.
the same language, sorry. I just want to make sure I'm,
Sure.
okay.
And the goal was to get that to what amount again?
Ideally, we'd like to get it to 500,000.
And that's currently just used for claims against the city, is that the current use of it?
Yes, so that goes to pay that initial $30,000 threshold where the city is responsible for paying claims. And then above and beyond that, we have stop loss insurance, which covers big claims beyond that amount.
Could that be used for, if down the road an HSA was an option
That's the exact thing I was.
to help contribute to the employees fund? You know, whatever, $500, $1,000 per, $2,000 per employee, whatever, to make up the difference on a maybe higher deductible in the future, which is, I'm already seeing on these new, it's going to save us a ton of money. But we could offset it with an HSA and then fund the HSA portion it through, can we use that for that?
You could, I mean, you can use, as long as the funds go towards employee benefits, yes,
Yeah,
you can do
that's
it.
good.
It depends on how, obviously, you don't want to wipe out that reserve if you're going to continue to offer a plan where you have to pay
Well,
claims, but if you're doing, if you're, whatever restructures you look at doing, those funds can be used towards paying health insurance.
I would like the employees to listen to an individual. I've had a visit with Andrew. I told him that we were going to call him. What he does, he's going to go through 4 different options. I think, he will do a much more professional job at talking and discussing the logistics rather than us trying to approach it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to call him, I'll introduce the commission, city manager, and then we'll, give him the platform. If anybody has any questions, whether it be an employee or a commissioner, we'll pause and he will answer those questions. So let me see if I can get a hold of it. Mr. Langhofer, this is the City Commission of Goodland calling. I'd like to take an opportunity to introduce the commission and the city manager. Then after we do that, you would just give a brief summary of your expertise, who you represent, different organizations, and then we will give you the floor to start talking with the commission on option 1, 2, 3, and 4. I have addressed the city employees and commission as well, and if they have a question, they will ask you, and then you can respond to that. So I'd like to introduce Commissioner J.D. Brombaugh, Commissioner Aaron Thompson, Commissioner J.J. Howard, Commissioner Gary Ferris, and our city manager, Andrew Finson, city clerk, Mary Vogt. And so with that being said, I'm going to kind of raise this telephone up here to the podium, and then we'll give you the floor. So you're on, Bob.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be with you this evening. At a time when, certainly, not only across the state, but across the country, oftentimes we are
we struggle with trying to get together and share ideas, so it is a pleasure to be here. So, in terms of way of background, I currently am associated with an organization known as USI Insurance Services. We are a property casualty and employee benefits consulting firm with about 8,000 employees and roughly 200 locations across the country. We are about the third largest independently held insurance brokerage firm in the U.S. And really what we do on this side is we help our clients manage risks associated with their insurance programs. On the employee benefit side specifically, when we talk about managing risks, it's not just about shopping for insurance, but it really is trying to provide stability in the long term with health insurance programs, trying to take the peaks and valleys of the process and make sure that you have a sustainable program. So that's in essence what we do. Just from a local perspective, I work with Northwest Tech. I had the opportunity to work with Ben Cheers when he was at Cali College. And so I really think it was through the relationship that we have with Northwest Tech that I became acquainted with Mr. Garcia. And so in this discussion, we started down this road, I think it was sometime last year. And so we just started talking about ideas on how to achieve a balance between what the cost of the city's insurance program is, and also trying to make sure that you had as high quality, affordable plan as what you could have. And so we started down the discussion about what other employers are doing to provide affordable coverage to their employees. So one of the things that we do when we work with organizations, and we just completed our most recent benchmark, is to look at not only the cost of the insurance plans overall, not only what the deductibles and co-insurance and co-payments are, and what's coming out of the employee's pocket, but also in terms of how those benefits end up being communicated. And in today's environment, of course, everyone would like to have as low a deductible as possible, and also as little coming out of their pocket for the cost of health coverage. But the reality of it is, in today's environment, with the cost of health care and the cost of insurance, it's very, very difficult to have a low deductible plan that's offered to staff without it costing anything. It's just too cost prohibitive. And so one of the things that, in fact, we just completed our benchmark survey, but one of the things that we do is we look at what employers are doing, not only regionally, but across the country. And personally, I will tell you, I work with the city of McPherson, I work with the city of Manhattan, I work with Topeka School District, Winfield School District, Cali Community College, Northwest Tech, so on and so forth. So we do have a lot of public entities that we work with. And so USI just completed our benchmark. That benchmark, through that benchmark comparison, we essentially are able to compare for organizations what their deductibles are, what their co-insurance is, how much it costs employees for the cost of insurance, so that employers can make decisions about balancing affordability and as high-quality benefit program as possible. And it becomes difficult to do that. So in the process of looking at our benchmarking, talking with Mr. Garcia, he shared with me, where your costs are currently for the plan that's in place. And so I prepared an exhibit with several different options to at least kind of start the dialogue for you. And I will tell you that these options that you see here are not necessarily the only options that our employers are considering. In that regard, there are not many employers that provide 100% coverage for employees for all tier levels. And so when I talk about tier levels, employee, employee and spouse, employee and children and family, there just are not many employers that can afford to continue to provide 100% coverage. So, one of the things that we've seen employers do, in addition to looking at different contribution strategies, as you see here, is we have seen after the passage of the Affordable Care Act, employers make the decision in many instances to ask employees who are married and whose spouse has coverage available under their employer's plan to ask the spouse to be covered under that employer's plan. So, for example, if my wife were employed, and I worked for an organization that said that if your spouse has coverage through her employer, we want her to elect coverage through her employer or pay additional for the cost of coverage. And so the reason why a number of employers have done that is because under the Affordable Care Act, if you have more than 50 full-time equivalent employees, under federal law, you're required to offer coverage. Now, oftentimes there's confusion about, well, I thought the mandate for insurance went away here within the last couple of years. The mandate as far as individuals having coverage went away, but not the mandate for employers. So one of the strategies we've seen employers use as of late is actually requiring employees who are married to ask their spouse to become covered under their spouse's employer's plan. So aside from that, what you're going to see, or what I provided to Mr. Garcia earlier today, was 4 different strategies. The first strategy is where the employee would pay 10% of the cost and the city would pay 90% of the cost. So based on your current rate structure, you'll notice on this document that it says employee cost monthly. The pre-tax cost on a monthly basis, with the employee paying 10% of the cost for single coverage, would be $56.55, and then on the family side would be $165.53. Now, under federal law, and most of you are probably familiar with what's known as the Section 125 plan or a cafeteria plan, often it's called. Under federal law, employers can deduct the cost of coverage paid by the employee before taxes are taken out of the employee's paycheck. And so one of the things that we often look at is, if we would deduct $56.55, what would the ultimate impact be to the individual's take-home pay? And so assuming a 25% tax rate, that would be federal, state, and Social Security combined, on a monthly basis, the impact to the employee would be $42.41. And then if you look below the blue line, you'll find what per paycheck impact is. So before taxes are taken out, it would be $26.10, but the net impact to the employee would actually be $19.57, assuming 26 paychecks, over the course of the year. The employees ultimately would pay $74,827 in cost. The city's cost would be $673, representing, of course, a 10% reduction, or $74,827 in terms of premium that you would ask the employees to pay. So I'm going to stop just for a moment conceptually. Is everybody with me as I've described what's on that document in front of you?
Yep, everybody understands.
Okay? Okay, perfect. So if you look at option number 2 would assume that the employee pays 20% of the cost and the city pays 80% of the cost. The concept is exactly the same as what we talked about in option number 1. The pre-tax cost is $113 on a monthly basis. The impact to take home would be $84.82. If you break it down on a per check basis, the impact listed below the blue line is at $39.15 for single coverage and up to $114.59 for family coverage. Option number 3 is where the employee would pay 100% of the cost for single coverage only. All other employees would pay 20% of the cost, and the city would pay 80%. The monthly cost for employee and children coverage would be $161.84 on a considering the post-tax impact, and then on a per paycheck basis, $74.69, and then on the family side, $114.59. The city's monthly cost over the course of a 12-month period would go down by $134,000 from where you are today. The last option that we illustrated would be where the employee cost is paid for. So single coverage is provided by the city, and then the employees would pay the difference between what the single cost total premium is and which level or tier level or coverage level they've selected. One other element that I think is worthy of consideration is that most of us enjoy choice. In other words, we prefer to be able to elect a benefit program that works best for our family. And this is a concept that we introduced over at Northwest Tech a few years ago when I started working with them. We actually, at Northwest Tech, introduced 4 different medical plans for their employees to select. And the college then funds at a specific level. So you're going to see that over on the left-hand side, 2 different options, and I just did this for illustrative purposes. I know that your deductible today is at $500. But let's say, for example, you offered $1,000 or a $2,000 or a $3,000 deductible or a high deductible health plan. And as a city, you decide at what level you're going to provide coverage. And, you know, you have to do it based upon what the economic situation and scenarios dictate. And we know, based upon decreasing sales tax revenues that we see in other organizations that we work with and the increasing cost of insurance, there are a lot of governmental entities, and I should say, not even governmental entities, employers across the board that are seeing pretty significant reductions in their revenue streams. But by offering a multiple option, where the organization would decide at what level of coverage they're going to fund, if you give employees the option of electing maybe a deductible that would be less than what the standard option would be, then you give individuals flexibility and choice to decide what works for their family. On the other side of the scenario, and Northwest Tech implemented this strategy as well, they actually offered a high deductible health plan. And a high deductible health plan cost would be lower than not only is what reflected under your current plan, but even less than what's reflected at that $2,500 deductible level. And individuals have the opportunity to put money into a health savings account. Those dollars accumulate year over year. If you don't use the dollars in your health savings account, you actually are able to use those dollars on a go-forward basis. And if at some point down the road the individual decides to retire, they're able to use those dollars that go into their health savings account for items that are not covered, by the cost of insurance. So the concept really is, not only might it be appropriate for employees to share in the cost, but it also might be wise to give them several different options to choose from, because each individual's family is different, and with those different economic needs, sometimes choice really helps individuals make the best decisions about their, about what works for their family. So with that, we've outlined 4 different options. We've also talked just briefly about offering or asking employees to pay additional for the cost of the coverage if a spouse is covered under their program, their employer's plan, or has the option of being covered. And then perhaps a multiple option as well where an employee could choose among a couple of different options that are made available to them. And by bringing those things forward, you have the opportunity to provide a little bit more stability for the city from a financial perspective, but also give employees choice based on the economic scenarios, not only at the city, but at the individual employer or family level. So I really tried to cover it briefly at a very high level, but just give you some food for thought as you think about what the right go-forward path is for the city. So what questions do you have for me that I could answer for you?
On that plan, the city, if they so choose, or we so choose, we can kick in a certain amount on the HSA, contribute to that for the employee.
Yeah, that's absolutely a possibility. And we have a number of employers that make the decision to make contributions to an HSA.
Thank you.
Certainly, for example, and I'm just going to throw an example out. Let's say that the city decided to allocate, just hypothetically, $600 per month per employee. And if the high deductible health plan cost was $500 per month, we would have $100 excess that could be contributed to an HSA if that was part of the strategy. And then, depending upon the level of coverage, the coverage tier, if I elected single coverage at the federal level, I can put about $3,500 into my HSA. And so, contributing $100 on a monthly basis, $1,200 per year, I would have the flexibility to put an additional $2,300 into an HSA. The thing that I really like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Bob.
Okay. The thing that I personally like about an HSA, even more so than a flexible healthcare spending account, is under an HSA scenario. I do not have to put money into the account until I actually incur the expense. As long as I set the account up, I can carry a very minimal balance in it, and then if I incur the expense, under federal law, as long as I'm covered only under a high deductible health plan when the expense is incurred, I can make a deposit in my HSA. It just provides a tremendous amount of flexibility for families in today's environment. Where if I'm covered under a healthcare flexible spending account, as opposed to a health savings account, I have to make that election during my enrollment period, and I cannot change my mind during the year unless I have a change in family status. And so sometimes people have no idea what's going to happen to them from a health perspective. And if money is tight, they may have to do some other things to take care of their families. But in the unfortunate situation where you have a significant medical issue, a health savings account just gives you a lot more flexibility. And so we do have a number of employers that we work with that make the decision to contribute to the employee's health savings account if an employee wants to elect that high deductible health plan, which would have lower costs.
So I have a couple of questions. Under the annual premium, $748,000, is that what it would be if the city still paid 100%? That would be the cost to the city.
Yeah, that's based on your current scenario. 49 employees covered, you're paying Blue Cross about $748,000 per year.
Okay.
And that's currently. That's your current premium prior to your upcoming renewal.
Okay, and maybe you said, and I didn't catch, but what company do you represent? What are these quotes from?
Okay, so yeah, what I actually did is I took your current premium from Blue Cross, and all I did was bring in 4 different contribution strategies. So you're paying 100% today, it's costing you $748. If you would make the decision under option 1 to ask the employees to pay 10% of the cost, your cost would go down to $673, so on and so forth. So we actually have not gone out to other insurance carriers. We haven't engaged in any negotiations with Blue Cross. All we did was look specifically at your current plan and different contribution strategies that you could start considering prior to your next renewal. That's all we've done.
Yeah, thank you.
Any questions, Stephen? Here. Andrew?
Bob, when you look at a $2,000 or $2,500 deductible type plan, what is a typical, say, maximum out-of-pocket cost to an employee?
So the standard, and I'm gonna relate that back to Blue Cross specifically, but Blue Cross has primarily 3 different co-insurance designs. So when we talk about co-insurance, after an individual meets the deductible, there is a portion that would be paid by Blue Cross, and then a portion, of course, that the employee would pay. And so the 3 different designs that Blue Cross typically has is they'll have an 80-20, where the plan pays 80%, just like what you have today. They have a 60-40, and then they have a 50-50. And so under the 80-20 scenario, the most common that we see with Blue Cross is either $1,000 of co-insurance per person or $2,000 co-insurance per person. And then on the family side, normally it would either be 2 or 3 times. So let me give you just a quick example. If we went with the $2,000 deductible and the plan pays 80%, the employee pays 20%, where the employee's co-insurance is $1,000, their out-of-pocket for deductible and co-insurance would be $3,000. And then you have a couple of different options here. If an individual had an office visit copay, let's say $35 office visit copay, and you had prescription drug copays, and Blue Cross has several different prescription drug copays, but let's just go with a $15 on generic, a $30 on brand name preferred, and a $45 on brand name non-preferred. Under the Affordable Care Act, all of the employees' out-of-pocket costs, the deductible of $2,000, the co-insurance of $1,000, plus all of those office visit and prescription drug copays, would apply towards an individual out-of-pocket maximum. And so, that individual out-of-pocket maximum, most standardly with Blue Cross, is $63.50 per person, or $13,700 on the family side. That's just standard Blue Cross Blue Shield across the board, but most of the time an individual would never get to that out-of-pocket maximum. You just won't reach enough in terms of copays. So to go, and that's a long way of answering your question, but ordinarily what we see with Blue Cross is somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000 on coinsurance on a per individual basis, and then somewhere between 2 to 3 times on that for the family side. They have come out with a couple of new options under Blue Cross within the last year or two. Maybe it's been 3 years, where instead of having that co-insurance limit of $1,000 or $2,000, you end up going to a $5,000 combined out-of-pocket maximum, which would be deductible co-insurance and co-payments all combined. And those plans end up being a little bit more aggressive, or I should say they require more out-of-pocket. But standardly, we are seeing that as an option with Aetna and United Health Group, where they have everything going to one combined out-of-pocket. But Blue Cross of Kansas is not quite there yet from just having a standardized approach. They still are allowing those individual co-insurance limits to be applied. So that's a long way of answering your question. To make it succinct, probably $1,000 or $2,000 in co-insurance on top of deductible is the most standard arrangement that we see in the state of Kansas.
Thank you.
Employees have any questions, Mr. Langhofer? Okay, well, Bob, thank you so much for your time. We're going to continue with our meeting. Thank you for expounding on these options. The commission will take them under consideration. And then if there's any other questions, that need to be concerned, I'll plug it into Andrew. All right, thank you, sir. Mm-hmm. Bye. Bye. Okay. Any thoughts, JD, Aaron? Andrew?
I just think it's hard to make an employee pay something out of their pocket. That's like a slap in the face to them. It really is. You're deducting their wage. I wouldn't put up with that if the boss did that to me. You gotta start paying 15% for your whole family. And not give them a raise, and if you give them a raise to compensate that for that $15 deductible, or 15% deductible, you're costing the city more money if you're doing that. Because you've got another, 17% in taxes that you have to pay on top of your, like $1 wage. So it costs the city more money to do that. And like I said, if my employer came up and said, you're gonna start paying 15%, well, you're deducting my wage. I just wouldn't do it. I'd say, adios, see you later, bye.
I again feel like we're having a lot of in-depth conversation about something that we can't really discuss in depth until the end of the year.
Yes.
It's good to have all this information, but there's nothing that we can do with any of this until it's time for insurance renewal.
I agree with you wholeheartedly there.
Well, there you know, it's not till March 1st.
Well, yeah.
Till March 1st. I think, one of the questions, that I would like to allude to, we throw these dollar figures, from a respect that we're trying to be conscientious both towards, the employees and the city, and so you have taxpayers out there that have been reading papers that now at least have been calling and saying, whoa, So we didn't know that all of this was going on. My response is, you know, it's always a give and take situation. But I guess, you know, talking from an economic standpoint, if you were dealing personally from your own personal economic standpoint, I've alluded to this before. You know, the last 2 years, we've shaved $1.7 million off of infrastructure. This year, our budget is over $2 million less, going down to 14 million. Where are we going to make that money out? And now, further said, take a look at the Colby expenses. You talk about wages. There's people there that are starting at $16 an hour, and they're still paying 30%, and they're still go ahead.
John,
Yeah?
you don't need to
Yeah.
raise your voice with
Yeah,
me.
yeah. No, I'm not raising my voice. No?
Yes, you are.
Go ahead.
You can be civil.
I'm being very civil.
No, you're not.
Yeah. Well, I'm asking you an economic standpoint, from an
No, you're
economic
not. You are
standpoint.
not being civil to me,
Okay?
and I'm not gonna put up with that.
Yeah, well, you don't have to put, answer the economic questions is what I'm addressing.
I know that, and I was late getting to the meeting, but I put out my thoughts on what the employees want.
Mhm. And before you got here, the question took place that there was going to be different options presented to them. In fact, today, in being fair to the employees, we have to give them time to look at all options. But I'm just dealing with the economics, JJ. I'm not trying to, I'm just looking at the numbers. I'm looking at the facts.
And I understand that, but I guarantee that employees will go somewhere else. And if you give a wage raise to compensate to Colby, and I don't like being compared to Colby all the time, we're Goodland. We are Goodland. Let's find out a way to be better than Colby. Get other stuff to come into town so we can have a bigger tax base to make more money. So we don't have to deal with stuff like this. We got more tax revenue coming in. We can afford to do things. That's, you know, and our base insurance cost is $750,000. Why are we paying the other 30 for the part of the insurance where we have to pay in for the 5-year plan? That's what makes this a bad thing right now, because we don't know where we're at on the price of insurance.
I think we
That's
do,
the
buddy.
whole thing.
I think that under the current proposal, I asked a question, is at $944,375. That's where it's at.
Yeah, but that's not our base insurance is $748.
Yeah, that's our base insurance, yeah. Based
And
on,
we keep adding 300,000 to that, or 250,000 coming up to the $1 million basic insurance plan. So why can't, if we can get an insurance somewhere else and have it cheaper, and have all the same stuff, have 100% coverage for them, have a $1,000, $2,000 deductible for them, and have a cheaper plan, and have all their insurance, and have all their co-pays paid, and like it is now, and save the city money. That's money in our pocket.
I guess, how do you propose we do it?
Through different insurance quotes, so we know where we're at. But I don't want to be out fixing streets in Goodland and working on the power lines. Because that's what's going to happen. And if you raise the wage to get those employees back, it's eventually costing us more money in wages. Because it's an extra, I think it's 17% on the dollar. Is that right, Mary?
17% what?
On a dollar, if you give the employee $1 raise, it costs the city $1.17. You give them a $2 raise, it's costing us $2.35 an hour. But you can't cut these guys' wages and say, hey, you're gonna start paying 15%. And if you give all the wages in the city, everybody in employees and raise, it's $100,000 if it's $1 an hour raise. That's just their part. Plus another 17%.
But I think on the plants that were being presented, there was going to be some modification because there was going to give raises to make adjustments to that.
Right, but there we go again, you're back to the raise, which costs the city more money.
Because we continue to do it over and over and over and over.
It still costs the city more money if you give them a raise to take care of the percentage of the insurance that we're making them pay for.
To me, I'm just basically presenting the economics. That's what I'm saying. If I were facing a personal decision, I would be making that decision. I don't think any of us would. If the coffers don't measure up, there's just no way that we can continue to proceed without facing repercussions. Without facing, now, we've got economic development. Our biggest economic development is I-70, is the amount of people that we draw out of there because then everybody benefits. But under the current system that we see here, it's killing us.
But these are still the old numbers.
Yeah.
He didn't bring us a new number. These are still the old numbers that you're working everything off of.
So, my goodness, a 10%. If you come up with any other plan than this, it's going to be more.
How do we know that? We don't know what the plan is.
He based it off, brother, he based it right off of what is currently right now.
Yeah, that's currently. We don't know what another company would bid it for.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right.
And that's where we're at.
I think, JD.
Why do we gonna come up and make the employees pay this much and we get another bid that's way low and then what do? We've already stated that the employees are gonna pay this much in insurance and they're already looking for something else. And, well, we found something cheaper.
Yeah, well, and I agree with you there. I agree with you 100%. I think, we can instruct Andrew to say, hey, start reaching out, bring different bids to us, and let's start, but it doesn't take that long to get these numbers.
But that's what we need.
Yeah.
Because all our employees are good employees. They do their job.
Sure.
To keep somebody in your job without letting them quit, you've got to keep them happy. And a happy employee gets a lot more work done than the guy that comes in, I hate being here, I need to go somewhere else. Chris?
Go ahead. Sure.
I did a little. I did a little homework myself, which. In the school, according to Terry, their monthly premium just for a single, and that's the biggest information that I have is that they pay $567 for a single premium, and I don't know. Do you know what the deductible is and all that? And so for our single plan, we pay $581. Okay, the college they pay $670. That's their single premium. Now it sounded like they had a few other options, but that's over $100 more a month. The county they're self-funded as we are, and I have the numbers from the Blue Cross Blue Shield, but it's not complete because that's all I have. I don't have the funded part of that, and so I didn't want to present that. But they pay $764 for a single plan, and they pay 100% of their premium. So
Who is this?
that's for the county.
Yeah.
So and of course, in their numbers, I tried to do the math. Ours works out to be about 53%, of the funded part. So I didn't feel like that would be fair to do to the county because I don't know that to be factual. I think. And I have some paperwork here if you care to look at it. But in terms of the compensation, I have that form. I think that was sent out, and I modified that. If I can I present that to you? Is that
Sure.
okay? I didn't make much copies. This is to JJ's point there in terms of just the compensation. That's 17.25%, and that's what it costs the city.
This option A is what you're looking at.
I did them all. So. think the other thing that bears to be mentioned is that, we signed a long-term energy contract, and we paid an adder. And to the end of last month, we paid $1.497 million just for a piece of paper. Is really, that's all it's for. And that's a significant hit. And as employees, we're having to take that hit. And I understand working all this stuff out, but as far as the premiums go, we are competitive. We pay a competitive premium. And I don't know what you think you're going to find out there, but I don't think that it's going to be like this magic golden ticket. And the problem is that in, 2, 4, however many years, when you guys move on to other things or whatever, we're going to be the ones still here paying the consequence of that. Just like $1.497 million. And we still got 6 years to go on that contract. And there's nothing we can do about that. That at the time, I don't know. I wasn't around necessarily, but.
So I think maybe you can correct me, Dustin, if I'm wrong. But, and I understand to your point what it is, but the issue that we have is that we have a power company that can be self-generated. But the reason that the city went with that is because we can find cheaper power from other electric pools, but the problem is that every time they start channeling through their grids, they're going to say, hey, you're going to have to pay us more, so they make up the difference.
No, the KMEA can have a firm 85% contract. Right now, we pay 56% of our contract is who knows what. When in our 10-year rolling average, we're above average, so we're not losing revenue.
Yeah.
We're gaining revenue.
No.
This year alone,
I'm talking the grid that Sunflower owns.
Yeah, you're never going to get away from transmission.
Yeah, we have to pay whether we like it or not, unless we start building to connect the Midwest, which I've been saying that costs you $2 million, something like a block to get out there, because then you can get competitive. But as long as you use their grid, they're going to charge you, they're going to make up for it.
You're going to pay,
Yeah.
to your point, yes, you're going to pay the transmission, but you're not going to pay an adder. You're not going to pay that.
No.
You're not going to pay the peak demand charge. And I have all these numbers here. I mean, the demand charge has been $6.9 million, and that's since last October. You're not going to pay that. You're not going to pay 56% of what we've been paying. So we're not losing money in revenue. You keep talking about that, but I mean, we're not losing. Now, to your point, we're also not gaining, and that's a problem because the cost of everything is going up. So I think that's a fair assessment, but we're not losing money. We're selling more electricity. We're doing very well. One of the tariffs kind of went off the beginning of the year, and so what we've seen is that that profit margin has increased a little bit. Now, what they did on the flip side of that is they added a month to the peak demand season, and they raised the rate. So, we're going to feel that a little bit. But at the same time, that profit margin has gone up.
Yeah, well, thank you for your presentation. So I just wanted to, when Rock was still in on the production side of things, we were able to find cheaper power, but by the time we had to pay all the tariffs and transmissions, we were up a creek too. So. Anyway, any other thoughts regarding the, Andrew, I think, it would be wise, I don't know who you can contact. Do you know the name of the agent from Maritime, JD?
I can't think of his name right now.
Something maybe you can plug, Andrew into?
I've provided the information before, and if
No health insurance company is going to provide us with quotes until late November, December at the earliest with actual renewal information. We can't get information at that until that time because they will not quote it out. They look at what your claims are, and so if you don't, they're not going to sit there and say we'll quote you in July what your rate's going to be in March. Right? It's too far out. They're not going to give us numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I think we got to come up with a number for the budget. We aren't gonna solve all these problems tonight. The 750,000, and you add 15% to that, what's 865? Where's the difference then for close to the million that we're getting?
What is the 760?
So the 750 was our annual, what they said our current premium is. And if we're gonna cushion it 15% for whatever increase we're guessing, for this year, so that brings it to 865. So where do we get close to a million at then?
That's 750 on that, I thought that it was more like 810. All these numbers don't know what it actually was.
Can we even talk on dental vision? Is that
Prescription plan is part of the group cost.
part of the million? Why don't we ever see those numbers?
That's part of your group cost. Prescription
But I mean, itemized out. I mean, but as far as if there's an increase or changes in that or anything, we skip the whole number. We don't have to talk about. I mean, is that more of the difference I'm not seeing in here, or I guess I'm still not seeing where we get to the million?
Like, the million is just an easy number to throw out there that's nice and round, that's easy to work with.
Well, I mean, it was 1,040,000 or something, I think, and then if we did the 4%, it brought to 960 something or whatever. So there's still a discrepancy I'm trying to figure out.
That's if they did the 20% or the 15%? It's probably if you did the
Just did
20%.
it at 50,000, we're still. On the spreadsheet that you sent out where everyone was at, what does that total to?
Spreadsheet.
Where it had everybody's, where they're at, if they're on the family or the spouse and child, but it just didn't have a total for all of that I remember.
Sure, so on what I had sent out recently, I've got about 944,000 on that estimated.
And that's not within 15%, or that's
That's
just
after the 15%, yeah, so I've got,
but that's with an employee contribution too? I just want to make sure there's enough money to cover whatever, because we aren't going to be able to decide this, so we need to be able to cover in the event that whatever happens between now and then on whatever bid we get, if nothing comes to fruition, we've got to have enough to cover what we got.
sure.
And we go from there. That's what I'm trying to get to, so we can get a number and move on.
Yeah, so what we have, I would refer commissioners back to the budget document. We've got 563,843 in health and accident insurance in the employee benefits fund. That's kind of just the health insurance, and what else is in that line item? Okay, yeah. So from there, then we have, these health insurance numbers, that's why, they're broken out all over the place depending on the type of fund. So when we're just looking at lump numbers, it's, that's kind of what we have sat down and calculated based on what employee plans are, and then taking that increase, so. So yes, we've got about the $500,000 range in the general fund, 330,000 in electric, 80,000 in water, and then 36,000 in sewer for the health insurance plans.
So I guess if we don't do the 20%, next year we're gonna be doing the same thing, or we're gonna be sitting here in budget time and not have a bid to go off of, because we can't coincide get the insurance, Blue Cross to work with us right now to get a bid instead of December, where it's gonna be not coincide at the same time, where we know what the insurance bid is, we're doing budget. Because the 20% was gonna get us to that, was not to get us on the same timeline.
Yeah, the 20% was to get us a contract to July, which would,
And if we do the 15, we're just gonna be right back here next year doing the same thing, trying to guess and trying to put a number to something that we don't know about.
presumably, because that is presuming that we have a 15% increase. Now, if we have, say we have a flat renewal, we don't use that 15% increase, then at that time you could say, okay, let's look at a higher cost 16-month contract. And, I mean, you could still look at awarding that, but it depends on where the numbers would come in at that time.
It just seems crazy that we do it this way, myself.
It was when I had a discussion with the employees a while back, I believe it was Terry who mentioned to me, and I hadn't thought about it this way, but even if we do change that premium date so that we have a number that we're working with, we're still only budgeting, so the insurance moves from where it is now to, August to August or whatever, so that we have numbers that we can work with. Half of that is still not going to be in the current budget that we're working on. We're going to be budgeting for half of that year, because the other half's still going to be outside of the budget window. So even though we will have numbers to work with, we still only have half of the insurance year that we're truly budgeting for with those numbers.
So the
So there's no real win-win perfect situation where we're going to have the numbers and it's going to perfectly coincide with our budget.
So when we budget, it goes from January to December.
Yes.
So where are you getting those figures? I mean, it goes from January, we actually know what the numbers are because we allocate them every year. Now, you have to March 1st to go out and get different bids from different, or insurance companies, right? That's where the March 1st date comes from.
Right. March 1st is our renewal date.
So what I'm saying is, so March 1st is a renewal, so we're working on trying to figure out a budget here
2021.
that we don't know what that amount's going to be because we can't get those numbers until the end of this year. So we're guessing what those numbers are going to be. We had discussed changing the date of the insurance renewal so that it coincides with the budget talks. But if we do that, the insurance is still not going to, the insurance isn't going to start at the first of the year like our budget is. It's going to start way earlier. So our budget is still only going to be for half of that insurance cost. So if we're discussing, say we had these numbers here, and the insurance started in August because we have these numbers, the insurance from August through December is on last year's budget. So you still guessed for half of that amount on last year's budget. See what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying, but I can't put it out there.
Yeah.
But you pay your insurance out of the fiscal year, though. That's what I'm not getting it. Because, so for 2021, right? If we approve the 944,000, that's what you got, right?
That's what you have
That's what you got
budget
for
authority
for
to spend.
Budget authority, you got the 12 months. So but we don't start, we actually start using those funds January 1st of 2021.
So the plan, the way we're at it right now, we're on a March renewal. So the city's health insurance benefits and the city's health insurance plan will continue for the months of January and February in the FY 2021 budget. So then March 1, and this is presuming we continue on the March 1, February 28 track. So then at March 1 is when the new plan rates, benefits would kick in. That's the renewal, and I think that's what Commissioner Thompson is saying, is that they don't line up. So when we have this renewal discussion, we are looking multiple years out because the renewal date doesn't align with fiscal year. right? So what we're budgeting for does go into the next fiscal year because it doesn't align January 1 to December 31. It goes March to February. So there is a little bit of overlap that,
Well, 3 months, because you're using, January, February, March, but you're paying it off the 2020 budget, right?
well,
Yeah.
you're at that budget rate. Right. So you know what those rates are, but it's in the 2021 budget. The January and February expenses for health insurance will be in the 2021 budget.
But, so I guess to JD's question, so we can't get any additional bids till November?
Yeah, not numbers that I would have any confidence in trusting, because any health insurance company can throw out a number to you and we'll quote it at this, and then exactly right. I mean, that's always the thing that you have to be skeptical about with health insurance renewals. If someone comes in with a too good, you can't say no offer, you should be skeptical of that, because
Unless they're coming in with that numbers telling us that it's good for 6 months,
right.
it's pretty much worthless at this point.
Because no company, it defies logic. No company's going out to lose money, right? So if they bid a rate that's too low and your costs are over what they bid, they're coming at you year 2 with a big increase because they've got to make that cost back up. It's the same thing as your health insurance. If you're a big user on health insurance, your rates go up because they've got to make that money back somehow.
Mhm.
So.
If it's too big, there's a surcharge.
Exactly. And so, yeah, no, companies won't, like I said, we can't get numbers in July or August for a March renewal because they're going to say, okay, show me this many months out of your previous claims history. And if that, because they could bid something right now, we could have, several employees have debilitating disease or something happen that's going to, increase our rates pretty substantially. So they will try to cut that date as close to renewal as possible. And I think that's what we try to say every year is I know that the commission feels rushed when we do the health insurance renewal, but really we are getting our health insurance renewal data like days before it goes to the commission. So it's not that, the process is inherently rushed because that's what these health insurance companies do to us. So it's not perfect, it's frustrating, but everybody goes through it.
Can I just go back to an hour and however long ago to where it was said that we can change that from 20% to 15% of the increase and have enough money left over to bump that pay raise to $1? I feel like that was pretty good. I feel like that covers any dollar amount on the insurance side. That would cover anything that any of us have discussed so far over the past month regarding health insurance, most likely. You never know until you get there. And that also gives $1 pay raise to all the employees and a chance to raise the starting wage to the same dollar, I would assume, because it would be the same cost all the way across the board. And with those changes and the rest of the budget the same, we have a budget. So if there's no other dissent with the rest of the budget, I say that's a pretty good deal. Thoughts?
Any other thoughts?
I think we've got to cover the premium that we have, because that's the only thing we have, so we got to make sure we cover our bases there, and we have the next however many months, and if someone comes in early, and I don't know, this guy can be any different, or he'll be November too, or whatever, but we can spend that time, and if there's something big and different and savings and whatnot later on, we'll have to figure that out, but we don't have the luxury of knowing that now, so we've got to cover that. So what's left is to figure out the raise deal. So what happens if it comes in 29%, which local company's rate did from Blue Cross, 29% increase, and they had to get out of their grandfather clause, and they chose a different plan because that was their increase this year, and they just are figuring that out, what to move off of that plan. So what if we miss it, and miss it by double?
Just so I can restate your question, is the nature of the question, what happens if a renewal comes in at 29% and the city has budgeted 15%, has not budgeted enough?
Can we pull from the same fund?
I mean, that would be a policy, that would be a policy decision, right? So that would be something for the commission to decide. You could pull from your reserve funds, you could pull from that fund, you could choose to unload that fund onto employees, or, that, I can't necessarily tell you how we would do that, because that would be a policy decision. But yeah, you would be able to use your revenues, you'd be able to look at whatever sources you wanted to supplement that cost.
Yeah.
I will say what I've heard, just speaking with other municipalities and other entities, that renewals this year are pretty favorable from the sounds of it so far. Because
Not the one I heard. I'm not going to share who it's with, but the discussions was 27 or 29%.
How recent was that renewal, though?
I just saw the quote the other day.
See, I'm hearing that with COVID, and obviously every entity is different, so you can't paint with a broad brush, but people are saying with COVID, utilization has been down, and that usually trends to a flat or pretty minuscule renewal because people haven't been using hospital services as much this year as in previous years.
So just, so we gotta, because we don't know nothing, so we gotta guess. So hypotheticals, say these, maybe we get something like this that falls in line with these numbers, and it looks favorable, and we budgeted X amount, but all these numbers are having employees. I don't know where everyone else would vote or stand on it, but what if we went with one of these options and we're locked into, if we went with $1 raise for this budget, but then we choose one of these options, or there's 3 votes to change off of what we had because it came in 30%, we're tired of that or whatever. But now we're going to start charging payroll deductions, and are we locked into the $1 raise, or there's no options at that point then? Is there, when we're in December, to adjust their pay even further to try to offset or make changes, or?
I think the trouble that you get into there is kind of what Mary alluded to with the different fund balances, the raises being in a separate fund than your employee benefits, right? So once you've kind of committed that we're going to spend this much in the general fund, and really the general fund is the biggest one because the utility funds, it's all kind of a big, the utilities, the costs are included within the utility fund. So, I mean, in theory, you could say we're not going to award the raises because we don't award raises until we get into the new fiscal year, obviously. But that gets tricky, obviously. We're not going to put these raises. We're going to put that over here in the health insurance.
Would be in essence, if we did that, we'd be taking some of the dollar back at that point. But you guys proposed a 48-cent increase, and then charged 48 or 4%, which basically took it all back, and basically there was no increase at that point, right? Is what was proposed in the original budget. I hate being put in boxes with no choices down the road. It just drives me nuts. not flexible at all, and just you get stuck, boxes because of this rule or that rule or this time frame, that time frame. So,
Well, let me just say this, when you take the oath to become a commissioner, you become what they call the gatekeepers of your municipality and also watchmen over your community. We've seen municipalities throughout the years who the erosion never came from the outside, but because the watchmen were watching what's going internally, and the walls started to deteriorate internally. And so, as I guess what I'm saying is, commissioner, you have a right, to voice like all of us, have here, whether we agree or disagree. That's the beauty of it. We walk away from here, we walk professionally, but at the end of the day, we have to deal that no decision that we make is inconsequential. And I am truly concerned about the taxpayers, and I'm concerned about everything that's going on Main Street. I'm concerned about the continual dilapidations of income. There's only one way to offset, and that is to continue to rise infrastructure costs. We've talked about so many different settings and scenarios. So, I understand and I appreciate. I've been seeing these guys work their tails. There was a decision. There was something that was mentioned here about at the last meeting about uplifting a certain individual. But after I left here, there's not a single one of these guys here that don't bust their tails evenly across. There's not a one that stands out. You do a good job. Our responsibility is becomes try and take care of you, and to try to take care of our taxpayers too, who are footing the bill, and try to do it as conscientiously within the economic structure and foundation that best benefit the upcoming years of these communities. Because as you talk, you'll be here, but if we don't be careful, eventually there will be a shrinkage of jobs. 50 million people out of work right now. PhD guys working at McDonald's and Burger Kings across the state trying to flip burgers to put food on their table. So, and these are not horror stories. These are, stories that are happening in our own state. So I try to be conscientious towards you guys, and I try to be conscientious towards the taxpayers who are footing the bill. And so, but I say that, JD, to say that I understand your frustration, and I'm there. How do we fix the problem?
Did you see any other option with what we have and what we have to go off of? We're not approving really anything as far as healthcare. We've got the healthcare we want. We'd have to get a better plan, different plans, see that the premium's less, see that that's a better deal, or whatever the case is, but that's not for today. So is there do you see any other path forward as far as anything else we could do differently at this point?
Well, I think we just, we're up against the timeline. I'm hearing Andrew that nothing can be done until November. That's frustrating to me. I don't know. We all seem to agree, and you too, right, JJ, that we need to get off the grandfather clause, right? The grandfather blank.
As long as it's as close as possible to apples for apples,
right.
The employees are taken care of.
So, having said that, is there any reason why we can't bring, we know that they're stepping out on a limb, but if we say, okay, we're going to go off, we want to hear the plan that Chris said, hey, let's look at, but there's going to be some change because the moment we make any changes to the grandfather, but what are the numbers? I guess is what you're saying, right, JJ? As long as is there any way that we can get some information on that from different? I know that they're not going to bid until November, but at least it gives everybody some peace of mind.
I don't know other than a bid, what actual numbers would you want? What you want is a bid.
I want exactly what he proposed, but I want the real numbers. That's what I want. That's what I wanted for the past 2 years. 4 different options, 10, 20, all these different options, but I want these are fake numbers. These are based off of Well, not
based
phased.
off our
Ours.
existing.
I want the real deal,
Right.
what it really is gonna cost, what our premium is, and what I've been trying to say, having options, if we're ever to even move off of what we have,
Right. And we
for,
can't,
for
yeah,
people,
so,
for people to choose, and options for us to know how much it's costing us compared, the total amount compared to the grandfather clause.
if you
Simple as
want,
that.
if you want
I
the
don't know
real
how else.
numbers, the other word for real numbers is a bid, right?
Right.
We want a bid, and we can't get that bid until November, December.
Or whenever he gets it, whenever he can get it to us.
Yeah, it's a bid.
Right.
It's,
Same thing.
Well, premium, what's it gonna cost for the year? I mean, I think that falls under a, just like what Blue Cross, it's not 15% more, it's $115,000 more. I like to talk real numbers instead of percentages, because it kind of is more revealing. In the, compared to, you know, they give us a real number, a bid, and that's what we're stuck with, right? And that's what we go off of. This guy can do the same, no? Just don't know when he can come up with it, right? And then that's his quote. So, I mean, just like with shop car insurance or anything else, that's all I'm trying to do, is get different options at different deductibles, and if we were to change, not one size fits all for everybody. Everyone could have 4 options to choose from for what's best for their family, if it even is proven that it can be found for less than what we're paying. We don't know that still. And I don't want apples to apples, I want apples to oranges, because I want different amounts, different deductibles, different choices.
Yeah, but you still want one apple to apples.
Well, I want exactly what,
And then go down the line.
right.
But you still
Yeah.
want one apples to apples to see where you're starting at versus what we got.
No, I see what you're saying, yeah, but then I want,
Basically, we want this
different
from as many companies as possible come November or December when the time is right.
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear as a reminder, last year at renewal, we did bid grandfathered, non-grandfathered, and an HSA. So we did have those options for commission's review. So,
I want an outside bid,
yeah.
meaning different from our consultant. I want someone separate, this guy, whoever.
Chris?
So what drives the premium, to my understanding, is that that's the claims, right? So I mean, our claims are our claims, so you can't, I mean, I give you numbers from the college, the school district, and the county, but it's really immaterial because that's their claims, that's their plan. So, in my understanding, Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, and Andrew, you might know this as well, but there's a quarterly report that is gonna dictate, or is gonna display the claims. So, it seems like they don't make an adjustment to the premium willy-nilly. It's gonna be based on the claims history, and that's why we have to submit all these forms to get accurate claims. So there would be a way, I'm assuming we have those numbers, right? To be able to look at, see kind of where we're at.
Well, I think that's one piece of the puzzle, is our specific claims, but that's one piece to a much larger puzzle of a lot of different things that they pull from. Part of it's us, part of it's nationwide for their company. I mean, it's a lot of different things that they look at when they propose those bids. But yes, our specific claims should be a part of that.
Well, that's going to be the motivator. I mean, if you're a terrible driver, you're going to pay higher insurance based on your history. So if we as a unit have a high claims history, they're going to compensate. Someone said earlier that no company goes into business to lose money. So it's, I struggle to see how you're going to get someone to come in and give you these numbers that are just magical. I don't see that being the case.
Well, that'd be fine. And that's, it is what it is. I mean, but the numbers, the quotes that Ron was getting, all those other listings, if we went with that, that was the price, right? On all the bids and quotes she brought us?
She was bringing us actual bids.
Right.
Right.
So if that's the case, that's the case. You know, I'll leave it to the market to decide. I mean, but,
But I guess my point was, someone had mentioned the struggle with the 15%. I guess I'm suggesting that there is a claims history for the past year that you guys could look at and be able to make an accurate assessment. I assume, right, Mary? You get a quarterly report on.
There is, but there's other stuff that goes into that, because.
And I may have misspoke.
Well, no, but like, if you have an employee that, you know, is a high claim history right here, but you know they're retiring, that's not gonna affect your next year's premium because they know they're off.
So will they consider that and say, hey?
They will take that into consideration in figuring our premium.
Okay. Which is good to know. I guess I'm saying that you can make an educated decision. That's all I'm trying to say. Based on claims history, the data that you do have.
yeah, you never know how they're gonna arrive. And I've heard if it's a grandfather clause, the same person that just got rid of theirs because they went up 30%, as they were told that they were gonna keep raising it to the point to make it unaffordable to get them off of it too. So I don't want to put us in, if that's what they're, you know, I don't know what they're gonna come with, but we gotta keep, that's a possibility, you know, if we get a huge increase. But, you know, you know, we have nothing to, until we're proven wrong, we have no other, you know, there's no other choice, you know, until we have a better option that's cheaper and we think that's a better way to go, but we have what we have. So that's facts, right? So where does that put us in that scenario? If we have to cover our bases on this, please put that dollar amount in and with the dollar raise as far as the budget, because that wasn't presented. It was splitting the difference on the 4% and the 48 cents. So you're saying $1 without any deduction, any payroll deduction for health insurance? Is that what you're proposing?
So I think what Andrew was saying, that when we change, if we change the budget, because we had budgeted 20% initially, change that to 15%, the difference is there
5%.
can go towards making that raise a dollar raise for the employees. So just take the dollar amount that was at 5% and just put that towards wages. And that's what covers that difference.
With no deduction for health insurance?
That is with the 4% that was built in.
With the 4%.
So that's,
Is that what you're planning on that too, or no?
Well, I assume that 4% in the budget comes on the health and would be on the health insurance part of this. So I mean, I suppose that would be open for discussion come insurance time too. But yes, as it stands, that would be one thing where we get a great quote, get rid of that 4%. That's something, again, details on the health insurance side really needs to be tabled until till November. Yeah.
So at last meeting, you know, we talked at some figures and, you know, with the numbers that had been handed to me, I remember that, you know, it came, providing that, you know, that we didn't replace, we left the 50 employees, we were actually at 688,000. So you take a 15% increase to that, you end up at 791,000, you came up a little higher, right? At 15%, I mean, on the actual number of employees, just figures that were handed, you know, to us, if you've done your research. So the figures at 791,000, we're looking at, like I stated at the beginning of the meeting, 944,000 if you approve it, you know, as with the 15% the way it is, you know, right now. So, and that it's 100. What'd you say? 104,000.
For 50 employees,
Yeah.
a dollar raise,
Yeah.
104,000, with the 17%, it's
Yeah.
121,000.
Yeah. So,
But if you look at the profit and loss schedule, and this has all the insurance included into each one of these departments, right?
it has it into the utility departments, but then there should be the employee benefits fund is in there.
You know, if you look at the profit and loss schedule, with the revenues to the expenditures, we're doing pretty good. 'Cause we're making more money than what we're spending. With everything, with that net total of 944,000 in here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
But the dollar raise isn't.
No, but the 20% is in there,
Right.
which is where, yeah,
So it's the 20 instead of the 15 then in there, right?
right. So the dollar, the raise comes out of the savings from the decrease from 20 to 15. So 20 is still in there, the raises are not, but the numbers don't change in that respect, because we're just pivoting dollars here to there.
I really don't see other way path forward right now other than something like that, and I'm fine with that. But I'm also fine with, if proven wrong on the insurance side and numbers start coming across a lot different, being open to that option, because I still don't think this is a good, to stay on the path that we are with the plan that we have at the trend it's going. If it's so good, why isn't every business doing that? It's not a pathway forward, I don't think, and it's not the most efficient way for the taxpayer. And economically, it's not sustainable in my mind without compromising other parts of the budget. But until proven wrong, this is what we've got, and I'm fine with that. But I'm not going to be afraid if it comes in a lot different, significantly different. At least I'm just one person. I think the pathway forward is getting away from it and getting to some of the proposals similar. You could finagle stuff 100 different ways on how you shuffle wages and benefits and whatever. So that's kind of where I'm at. So I'd be all right with what Aaron suggested.
Well, and I think what you're saying, J.J. Stanley, well, from my perspective, is the fact that you approve whatever budget number, the commission decides on, but we still don't vote onto it until we take the vote, until we get the figures. So we don't, commission, depending on what the majority of the commission decides, we can approve that budget, right? The 944, but if the numbers come in different, as he says, then it will still be a commission decision whether to move forward with it or not, right?
Well, the health insurance renewal and the employee contribution, that can still be a subject of discussion come
Sure.
the renewal period.
Yeah.
And that doesn't offer any, so we for the employee side of it, that's I don't like that, but there's no other option here, but it does drag it out longer, and but I don't see any other way around it, and I'm not in control of what the bids will be or whatever, and it'd have to be worth doing it. That's all I guess. All I can say, it's going to have to be significant to see a way forward to make a change in my mind. $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, I don't think is going to do it. I think it's going to have to be a large difference to make a change, but that's yet to be seen. So, but we can't offer any more reassurance, I don't think, because we don't have anything.
Neil, did you have something that you wanted to say?
The last 2 years, we've done that health assessment where we had to put information into a computer. First year, we went to the hospital, got all of our records, put all that stuff in first year. Last year, it was going to cost the employees quite a bit of money, so then it was, well, just put in what you think you know or what you can put in. So from the first year to the second year, that's not the same. The First year, yeah, everybody put in all the information that they could gain from the hospital. Second year, we didn't have that option. So,
Why was that?
because the hospital was gonna charge everybody a certain percentage of what we were gonna get from them. So then it was, well, we don't wanna go that route. So just put in what you think you can remember, and so it wasn't honest and 100% last year like it was the year before.
So they had requests
So
for,
your bids for last year weren't 100% honest. The first year maybe.
For 2019, they were on it, but not for 2020, is that what you're saying?
Correct. Because we couldn't go get all of our information from the hospital because they were going to charge per person a fee to start getting all this information. So then we were told, well, just put in what you think you can remember and we'll just go from there.
so I happened to walk through when one of those requests came through and why that started, even though it wasn't in my area or whatever, they're getting thousands and thousands of pages of documents that were basically they're going to have to pull out and almost have a full-time person just doing that to do this for the city. That's why I thought it's ludicrous. I've never heard of, first of all, having to go and fill that out. I was never in favor. I can't tell you how many times my insurance has changed. They changed them or changed plans. I've never had to fill out a health insurance. So that's, for one, why that had to be. So I've always questioned that, having to go through and do that. And that's why on the hospital side they were doing that, because it was getting crazy.
And I can understand why they were asking for that.
Medical,
so they
and
could
you guys
be
are just
honest.
doing what you were told to do.
Right,
Yeah,
and
so,
without that information, they can't be honest with what our insurance is going to cost us.
so that was one question I wanted to ask him. I should have wrote it down why he's on there. If any bids he was going to do, that was going to be part of it. You know, how he was going to come up with that. And we're going to have to.
Because they have to have all of our information. If they have 10% of our information,
Yeah.
how can they bid the other 90% of it?
Yeah.
It's just like if I go into John's store and say, well, I want you to bid this kind of chair, but I expect this kind of chair.
Yeah.
Well, it isn't the same thing, and there's no way that you can do that without 100% information.
So in essence, the insurance could be costing us more than what it really should be, because you had 50 employees that say, hey, we're not paying the fee, so we just put in whatever information you.
Sure, they're going to build in their cushion. They're going to build
Nobody
it
can
in.
bid against our insurance because they don't have all the information. They can say, okay, you're paying the $750,000 now, well, we'll give it to you for $500,000. Well, then the next year when they find out that we've got a bunch of claims, well, now it's going to be $900,000. Because they didn't have 100% information like they should have had.
Fun.
Insurance is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a fair point, and that's something that needs to be brought up with whatever companies that we get bids with at the end of the year. Their stance on requiring all that information for each employee.
So we're on track to get something from him at some point. I just want to make that clear. I think I already did 2 or 3 times, but with those options, I think his track record and his resume speaks for itself from what it sounds like as far as who he's working with, the amount he's working with, and is, you know, even some people, you know, with the college and stuff. So I don't think it's a fly-by-night type deal at all from what it sounds like to me. So I think he'll get us some fair numbers, whatever he can do, and we'll see.
Well, and by then we should have quite a few more, right? And we start contacting different insurance bidders between now and November. You're telling us that in November we can start talking actual bids, right?
Yeah, I will take whatever direction the commission gives. We have PIC under contract. I know obviously there's some sentiments towards our current contractor. I don't necessarily agree with, I mean, I guess I don't know what the implication there is that PIC is giving us higher rates than, you know, that she's intentionally giving us false numbers or anything like that. But if commissioners want to pursue other contractors, I mean, or other bidders, that's within your right to do so. So it's
I just don't think there's nothing to lose. He's not costing us anything. So I'm open to listen to anybody or whoever wants to come and try to get our business, you know. But
Well, I think it's only good business. Yeah, it's like not going out and trying to buy, you know, a car. You get bits from different, you know, car dealers. So, and that's kind of JJ alluded to that too. That, you know, he wants different bidders, right, JJ?
Yes.
Yeah. And you're okay with that, Aaron? Okay. At this point, so do we need to meet again, or somebody wants to approve the number of the 944,000 that administration has brought to us?
we just rolling the raise into that.
Depends on how you make the motion. If you make the motion, do you want to roll that into with the discretion to change it, you know, at the time that you actually get the bids?
I mean, I don't feel like that has to be, I mean, we're just budgeting the dollar amount.
Mhm.
However, we want to deal with that dollar amount come insurance time, we can do however we wish, as long as it's within the parameters of what is budgeted under.
So that will take it up to about 958,000. At 104,944.
So what's the proper procedure for moving forward in order to have this budget be placed in the paper tomorrow, I guess is what we're asking.
Sure. So I think at this point with the commission, if I'm understanding, is to have the budget as presented with the changes of a 15% health insurance renewal, 4% employee contribution budgeted in, and the dollar raises, right? Is that the budget the commissioners are, I mean, is that where we're at on this budget?
I believe so.
Okay. The motion would be for the commission to publish that budget for public hearing on August 3rd.
I'll move that we publish.
Have a motion by Commissioner Thompson. Do we have a second? Going once, going twice, going,
So to publish what you just said?
Yes.
So what am I missing? Yeah, so what am I missing here? Is it,
you're,
yeah, no, I know that.
The 4%, why are we doing the 4% if we're just gonna give them? That's taking
It's
that.
actually giving them 52 cents more than what they originally came with.
Well, if we're just doing the 15 and give them a $1 raise, why don't we just take that 4% out? Just give them the $1 raise over the, instead of taking that 4% that they're supposed to pay.
I'm fine with that, but that's got to be readjusted when we discuss insurance in November. That insurance plan is going to be however much more that 4% with. I mean, I don't want the 4% in there, but I would like to get this budget moving.
So if we do the 15, make it 19% then.
But where's that money coming from? You're adding, by taking that out, you're adding extra money to the budget that's not in there.
Right, but we're already got, this has been budgeted for that 20% in this 944.
So that's
You've got
just the
more money
cost
in
of
there
the,
than what you're trying to get, 940, because that's a 20% markup you're trying to vote in there, 944,000. What's you gonna say, DJ?
so what the budget has now, just so we're all on the same page, the budget has now a 4% employee contribution to health insurance across all plans, has a dollar raise to all employees, and then it has health insurance, budgeted increase for 15%. So if you wanted to get rid of the 4% contribution, we would have to make additional cuts to offer the dollar raise. Or if you wanted to do 100% and give employees a 50-cent raise, or, you know, whatever that different number is.
I think that sounds better than having the employee have to pay 50 or 4%, making a 50-cent raise across the board. Take the 4% out, 15% increase for the insurance. It sounds better to the employees that they're not having to pay for insurance.
City, 12% or so of that raise,
Doing which one?
like the 50 cents and you're getting the raise. Or forgetting the 4%.
We're getting the 4%.
All this arguing is.
Okay, so what we're looking at is, so that 4% was what, about $45,000-ish overall? That 15% is how much? 150,000-ish? So why don't, if you don't want that 4% in there, why don't we do the dollar raise and take the difference of that 48,000 out of the 15% and make it, so you get the dollar raise, and then we add 12% to the increase to the insurance fund. That way they get their dollar raise, we still get a pretty good cushion on the insurance fund, and there's no 4% in there to deal with. Whatever that percentage works out to be, 11, 12, whatever. How's that sound to you guys?
So that's gonna change that number, that 944? I mean, the way JJ had it, by doing it, or whoever we had, if you add the dollar raise, you're at 958,000. Because you got 20% into that budget right now, instead of the 15.
Yeah, that would lower whatever the current budgeted amount for the insurance, that 40 whatever $1,000 of 4% would be.
I think we need the dollar raise just to get the, get more attractive starting pay.
Do the math, is that the math? So we're at 944, you had 958,000?
Well, what they're saying is that the 944,000 is after a 15% increase, and so take that increase down from 15 to 12 is the direction.
Or whatever percentage
Or whatever it
the
ends up
4%
sure.
works out to be.
I guess I have that taking it down to 919,000.
With the dollar raise?
That's just the cost of the health insurance benefit.
We'd be living on around 923,000 with the, right?
920,000, yes.
amend the motion?
I think we just need a new motion.
Thank you.
Died for nothing, so that-
I don't know what I thought we were discussing, but, yeah, go ahead.
I will make another motion to publish the budget tomorrow as presented with the following changes of making the raise from 48 cents to $1, changing the insurance increase premium amount from 20% down to, I guess that's not the right way to word it, or whatever, down 5% plus an additional percentage of whatever the 4% payment that the employees were going to have to pay on the premiums. Is that convoluted enough?
No, I mean, the nature of the motion isn't as important as everybody understanding what's going on so that we can go back as staff, make the changes that you want, and to bring you a budget with those new numbers. And I think we all understand, so.
I think the important thing is just the bottom number. I mean, you got the dollar raise, you know, 4% is going to be off. You just got to look at what the actual number.
I'll second before it expires again.
Second.
And that would be JD.
Yes.
Got a motion and a second. You got all the language that you need, right? Whatever it is. Anyway, any further discussion? Mary, read the roll.
Ferris,
No.
Howard,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Brumbaugh,
Yes.
Garcia.
No. So, we move on to economic item B. Any other thing in the budget that you need to?
I think I have direction from commission. Good to
Okay.
proceed.
Now, one question that so that still leaves you in the grandfather clause, right? Until we, coming November?
Right.
All right.
Doesn't,
So it's subject
doesn't
to-
change anything with the insurance currently. That'll all be discussed later on.
Okay, so we move on, that's what I want to know. Move on to item B, Economic Development Board questions. Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor. Questions? Just wanted to have a chance to get back with the commission, let you know that the Economic Development CVB Chamber Board did meet on Tuesday of last week, July 14th. They did have several questions. I outlined those questions in the memo. I know we're kind of running late into the meeting tonight. I don't know if commissioners want to answer these questions. I wanted to give you a chance, though, to discuss them as a board. This board had several questions about how they proceed, and what they wanted was a kind of a unified answer from the city and the county. So one thing that they requested is that the city and county get back and have another joint meeting. I forwarded these questions to the county commission as well. They've got it on their agenda tomorrow, and then I posed to them potentially a joint meeting August 3rd, but I would defer to this commission whenever we would like to get back with the county to discuss the board's questions. The board did at that last meeting appoint Bill Bierman as their 7th board member to make that board whole. But the questions they posed, again, they're in your packet, but you know, what is the timeline of getting the board established and someone hired? How many positions are being budgeted for? What is the startup budget to get this organization or department operational, get it off the ground? What is the operational budget going to be for this organization once both entities are funding it in 2021? You know, what happens to the existing Chamber of Commerce funds? Does the board have access to city and county legal counsel? Will the organization be a county department or 501c3/501c6? Will all organizations be consolidated into one or continue to exist separately? So.
some of those questions can't be answered until we actually meet with the county. Right. On our end of the scope, you're budgeting, how much did you say, 90,000?
90,000.
90,000. And so, we know, that's what's coming from our end. The legal counsel, I'm not quite so sure that, an attorney's wanna, is gonna wanna work for free,
Right.
right? So,
I think that question is dependent on the structure, right? If we're looking at making a county department and interlocal agreements, then I think our councils would work on something like that. But neither the city nor county attorney is going to establish the 501c3 or do some of those things. So I think some of that's dependent on.
what other question was there?
How many positions are being budgeted for? What is the startup budget? So what funds do they have access to now to get this thing going?
So some of those questions, I mean, Commission can correct me if I'm wrong, but once you establish the budget where you've given this particular board complete and total jurisdiction without no parameters or strings, then they would have to make a decision, what to pay the new ED director. They would have to make a decision if they wanted to hire a secretary. I mean, some of those, I think the most important thing that city and county could do is establish a budget and say, here's where you are. As far as chamber funds are concerned, Mrs. McClure always, handles those. And so whatever funds are there will automatically be, transferred into either a 501 or 506 for them to do whatever their, discretionary powers allow them to do. But I don't know how the rest of the commission thinks, but I think we need to get together with the county as soon as we can, to get some conclusive, answers from them. I know that, I think we all understand that the director will be a county paid position, much like Brian when we finalize, that deal there. And so I think we just need to have an open, candid discussion with them.
So with the county meeting basically concurrent with our city commission meetings, do I have the commission's authority then to schedule a joint meeting with whenever the county can get, if they can't make it the 3rd, we'll get them at the next regular meeting, and so we can get some answers to these questions.
I think that would be best, a group discussion with all of these things.
Any other concerns or questions on it?
None for me, Mayor.
How
Thank
about
you.
commissioners? No more questions, Frank. Okay, we move on to item 7, report city manager. Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor. A few items from me. So we did have this announcement last week about the city being the recipient of a $950,000 cost share grant. So that will go towards our 2nd Street Road extension for the Topside Manor project, and then so we have 2 blocks of 17th Street from Sherman to Montana / Kansas Avenue Alley. So we are getting awarded $950,000 from that. Our city match is about $167,000 for that. So the city and county's combined matches plus engineering costs, we're gonna shake out about the same as the $280,000 road we'd committed to spending without the grant funds. So the difference is we're gonna get $1 million of additional road improvements for the same price. So it's a pretty good deal for the city. And we got a cost share grant in while there's still grant funds from the state. We don't know how much longer that will continue. So excellent news there. We did finish the Welcome Center parking lot. We did pour some concrete sidewalk and take that to gravel. That was funded through a grant by the Dane Hansen Foundation. A reminder that our auditor will present at the next meeting, August 3rd. I will email out the preliminary budget report for commission approval at the next meeting. Reminder, we do have the public hearing on 1521 Kansas Ave at the next meeting. The CVB did award the city a grant of $700 for paint supplies and materials. The city is partnering with the Carnegie Art Center to paint a mural at the intersection of 11th and Main. So the road will be closed on July 24th in the morning from 6 to 11 so that mural can be painted. The CVB also did award the city a $300 grant so that it can become a member of Main Street America. That is a national organization that focuses on main streets and Main Street growth, kind of goes in tune with our downtown revitalization project. On that same note, we have a few other road closures coming up over the next couple months. Just remind you that August 1st, Main Street from 8th to 17th will be closed at 4:30 for the fair parade. On the 13th, the 1200 block will be closed for Northwest Tech's March on Main Back to School event. And then getting into September, obviously we have Flatlander Festival, September 25 to 27th. Main Street will be closed as well. On a personnel note, obviously Chief Showalter has submitted her resignation, and we are pursuing applicants for that position at this time. And this got lost in the last meeting, but obviously Mayor Garcia kind of alluded to, we did lose Suzanne McClure, and staff has definitely been impacted by that. We miss her greatly and everything that she did for the city. So that would be that would conclude my report. Would stand for commission questions at this time.
Has that chief of police position been offered to any of the officers?
It has not. We are going to do a full application procedure. So internal candidates would be welcome to apply, but we will pursue all applicants.
Any other questions for you? Okay, we move on to item B, municipal clerk, judge report.
Both of you or all of you guys. Usually when I give you figures, it's for a calendar year, January through December. These are state reports that I send to OJA every year, and it's on the state's calendar year, which is July 1 through June 30th. So just to note, kind of what I look at is the top portion of it, the number of cases filed. July 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2019 was 446. Same period, July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020, it was down to 305. So kind of trending down. Some of that also included, 3 months worth of COVID, where I'm sure the officers were social distancing as much as they could during their normal duties as well. Well, that's about all I've got for you guys today. If you got any questions over the reports that I submitted, I'll be happy to answer them.
Did you take the tag number away?
Oh, yeah.
It was crazy, wasn't it?
I thought she was going to get you this morning.
I did too. They made a complete U-turn right in the middle.
Yep.
I didn't even know, never recognized the car or anything.
Yeah.
Any questions for Leanne?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
All right, we move on to item C, Director of Public Power, Dustin.
Okay, I'll go through the electric production report. We're still trying to recover from the COVID schedule that we worked at earlier this year. Guys are always on facility maintenance and cleaning. And onto general maintenance on each individual unit that we have. Chris is, start of the month, end of the month, works on monthly reports. They do all the maintenance on all of their vehicles and equipment. We've had mid-states come in and work on a few things. One of them has been the substation battery power system, the backup that went down probably about 13, 16 weeks ago. It takes that long to get a battery system in. So that has been installed. Sunflower did come in and give us a loaner unit on that. So it helped protect that $860,000 transformer we got sitting there. They've replaced a few valves at the plant that were giving us some issues. Also 2 circulation motors at the plant. We've performed maintenance runs. We usually alternate 3 units monthly, but with the COVID schedule, we're kind of behind this year. So far this year, we've had over 30 hours of outage run times on our units. You probably don't notice that because you don't see the power outages because we usually are up and running. Sunflowers, the GOAB replacement that happened earlier this year, that resulted in over 13 plus hour run on for 2 days. If we didn't have our power plant, you would see that because we just wouldn't have power. So as from January to the end of June, we are above or ahead 663,500 kilowatt hours in front of what we sold last year. So we're up that much. Even with COVID, I thought we'd see a little bit down, but we haven't. We've actually seen an increase. So a couple of the operators have yard maintenance, trying to keep the weeds down and stuff like that. And we're still advertising for a power plant operator. So if you know any of those guys at McDonald's or Burger King, send them our way.
Sure. As long as they have electrical experience.
If they know how to hold a screwdriver, I guess I've been told. So our distribution guys, our line guys, have been working on alleys, changing out poles, cutouts, arresters. We do have a new underground project on the east side of town to try to relieve a little bit of congestion in that area. And we're just waiting on our contractor, Dave Herring, to get in and do a little bit of boring. We've been kind of backed up. Eagle Broadband has come in and they're hooking up like 12 new services throughout town. So to kind of help with some of the issues that they've had. So, I mean, a couple of those, we've had to build transformer banks and stuff like that or run secondary wire. So we've been kind of backed up there. Holiday Inn Express, they are now powered up on their new pad mount transformer. We were actually, I don't know, probably 4 weeks ahead of their contractor. And so we're pretty happy about that. The guys do their monthly sub checks. The application of the pest deterrent on the loops and substations, I think has really helped with our system reliability, keeping squirrels and stuff off the poles. So I think that has really helped on our south loop. So we just don't see the blinks and stuff. And somebody knock on wood back there. So they do safety checks on all their equipment, maintenance on their booms and turns. So I know that they have a rotation greasing and stuff like that. So along with any service work from the city office, we do a lot of street light service work. So, and a lot of that is just either, I know the police department is out patrolling at night, or if you see anything, just give us a call, because that's how we rely on that, just word of mouth. Been a lot of locates lately, and monthly apprenticeship training and testing for the 3 guys I have is going really well. And I know last month they were here. I think this month they're in Colby. So they kind of every other month they trade off. So, but any questions?
Mr.
one question. I was at Sonic, last week or the week before, truck was out there, there was a guy up in it. You guys marking insulators or something, paintballs or something like that?
That's the pest deterrent.
Okay.
So,
Just wondering what it was.
so I call it an applicator tool. A lot of other guys call it a paint gun or paintball gun. But, so they have different colored paintballs you can put in there, and they have like lubricants for our switches and, breakers, and then they have grease, and then there's also the pest deterrent. The pest deterrent is what we put on the most because, yeah, you'll see them out there. And like out on Highway 27 and through their high traffic areas, they don't want to shoot from the ground just in case you got some bad shots. So they go up in the bucket.
You don't have that. I just wanted to know what it was, so if I'm asked, I know what it is.
Yeah, it's for, mostly squirrels, but I know back behind, where the old Coke building used to be, we had a raccoon back there. So, back in those trees, you don't think you'll see that, but you're trying to figure out why you had some damage on a pole and you look down and there's, I don't know, pretty good sized raccoon. So we're just, birds cause us a lot of issues and stuff. So I think, I'm not sure how much, it's like maybe $1 a pellet or something like that. But I know a cat one year causes $30,000 worth of damage. So, but guys are staying busy. So I do this every time I'm here. Anybody wants to stop by the plant, we love to show that off. So.
All right, Justin, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Move on to IT Director, Josh.
Evening. I'm pretty much just working on the standard stuff, computer updates, server updates, auditing, Active Directory logs, security logs, firewall logs, things like that. Only other thing that we really got going on right now is we are prepping for the phone and internet bids that are end of September or something like that.
November, I believe.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what we're working on.
Any questions for Josh?
Who all are we planning on getting bids from?
Anyone that provides a service. So we have AT&T, Eagle, S&T, and there may be another newcomer to Goodland.
Can't health insurance be that easy?
Yeah.
We still got to wait on the bids and discuss them.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I had a lot of this prepared last year, but whenever we extended the contract, it allowed us to put it off, and so I have a lot of the information, but there's still a lot more to go through because over the course of even 1 year on a contract, there's a lot of things that change, so we're trying to have all the legwork done so we have true apples to apples comparisons on.
We start Commissioners' reports. Garrett?
Things are okay.
JJ?
I think I've said my piece today, and just like to thank everybody for all the work they do. City employees, everybody in the city of Goodland. It takes all of us to make a town, so I appreciate everybody.
All right. Thanks, JJ. Eric?
Just gonna kind of piggyback on him and say, yep, it takes everybody to make this thing go, especially, I want to point out, in the police department here lately has had a lot of turnover in the leadership department. You know, we've lost our chief and our assistant chief, but I know who we have still on the force is doing a fantastic job, and they're gonna push through until we can get those hires in, and I look forward to the continued growth of the police department. Thank you.
JD?
Just appreciate, the conversations and just the professionalism everyone's showing the employees and us as we work through this. And it's not easy to sit up here and talk about all your guys' business and your livelihood and wages and trying to make the right decisions for the city and for you. So I just appreciate how it went tonight with everybody in the presentations and what everyone had to say.
Thank you, JD. Well, I think pretty much along the same lines. I think, we've had some real candid discussions with, the budget being the way that it is. I continue to believe that it's concerning from an economic standpoint, but majority of the commission speaks, and we respect the democratic process. And we do value and appreciate, what you guys do out there. We'll continue to look and search and see what's in the best interest, for all involved. And Andrew, I was going to ask you, so when we did the parking lot, did we get bids at the...
I did. I reached out to Molson's and Miller's as well, too.
We didn't send anything out to other bidders like Kinetic and...
No, we just pursued the three bids, and I mean, with Spore, the price they were able to give us, it was pretty non-competitive.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. One of the concerns that continues to be brought to me by these local contractors is that it's all great and fine, but maybe there should be times in which the commission should consider, giving these guys bids, even though they might be a little bit more expensive due to the fact that they live here, they buy water, they pay sewer, they buy electricity, they pay taxes, so their contribution, their valid, points. Sometimes, we have to watch, our dollars, but I think, one of the requirements or rules that we kind of discussed with you was the fact to make sure and get as many bids as we possibly can from, contractors in order to be able, and then it would be at, the discretion of the commission to choose whoever they are. But I know there's a lot of work, to be done around, I've driven around, even if you walk that block where you live, that gutter and that curb is a total mess. And so, there's concerns with alleys, that we need to address, on every block. They're beginning to deteriorate, but things that we need to, continue to address. And so, with all that being said, any other thing, all minds and hearts clear? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion, and a second?
Second.
All right, buddy, give me that help.
As you said, we're all appreciated, so are you.